I'm into Rob Wright's Gen X Pop Culture, and today I'm going to tell you about my Beetlejuice review. This will be non-spoilers, so I'm not going to give away any of the plot points or any of the fun surprises in this movie. But I will say that overall, uh, it's a good movie. It's a lot of fun. It's probably about a 7.5, almost an 8. Uh, Not as good as the first one. The first one is probably a 9 or a 10 for me. That's how much I really like the first one. This one is not a direct sequel. You don't involve Barbara and Adam's characters. They're not even in it. Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin are not in there. They're mentioned. Basically, briefly, it mentions what happened to them. You don't have any full clarification of that. Danny Elfman did give a little bit of clarification, saying that he just didn't want to focus on their characters. Gina Davis has also come out and said that, hey, we've aged, and Barbara and Adam are the same age as they were when they were ghosts. So it'd be a little bit harder to do that. So they're not in it. It's unfortunate, but the story really didn't revolve around them. Of course, from the trailers, if you see it, you'll see that Lydia has a daughter, and her stepmother is very much involved, Catherine O'Hara's character, and of course, Michael Keaton is Beetlejuice. So the story kind of revolves around them. It's an interesting story. You have a character from the first one who had passed away to start it. You can probably guess from the trailers who that is. And it's kind of about the generation of stepmother, mother, daughter, and how they interact and where they're going to go with their lives at this point. It's also about Beetlejuice. You find out a little bit more about him and who he was and what he did when he was alive. You're going to find out that he was with another character that's pivotal to the story, and you're going to see what he's doing right now. It sets up a little slow at first because it's setting up, where they are and catching up to what everybody's doing at this point in time. So you're caught up with where Lydia is in her life. You're introduced to her daughter, and you're introduced to where her stepmother is and what she's doing at this point in their life. You do have the same backdrop and the same Winter River town, the same house. There are a lot of little spoiler Easter eggs from the first film in this movie. You get some gorgeous pics of the town, some gorgeous pics of the house. You do see some other stuff as they pan around the town. If you pay attention closely, you'll see it. It's really good. Every time Beetlejuice is on the camera in the movie, I think he's hilarious. Michael Keaton nails the character again. He's funny. He's witty. At this time, you have his zaniness, but you have a little bit more depth to it, probably because you're more familiar with the character. But he has some great one-liners, some very funny commentary, and he does a great job. Catherine O'Hara is funny as Delia Dietz. She has her artistry about her that you either love or hate, and it's the same character as the first one. Lydia is interesting. She is similar to her character from the first one, although she's grown up quite a bit, had a daughter, and she's learning how does she really communicate and have a better relationship with her daughter. Her daughter doesn't really want as much to deal with her. You do find out about the father. That's part of the story too. It's kind of a family type story. You'll find out when you watch it. There are several subplots to this movie, and this is where it kind of goes awry and is a little bit more difficult to follow. So you have about 3 or 4 different subplots going on. All of them are interesting. All of them do have a resolution. However, the thing about it is that at certain points in the movie, you're like, well, what about this? What's going on with this person's situation and this character? Where's this other person? And it takes a little bit away from the film. I thought the film could have been maybe 30 minutes longer to better address some of these subplots. but they're there, and that is just the one concern I have. That's the one thing that's probably keeping this from being up there with an 8 or a 9, or maybe even a 10. It's because of those subplots and just the way they handle all of them. They all do come together. There is a resolution. It is good. It is funny. There are some fun twists to it, and I'm not going to give any of them away because I want you to enjoy it for yourself. But just be aware that there are several different subplots that you're going to have to follow in this movie. It's more in depth of story than it was in the first one, and it's more involved with the different characters. The good thing about it is this is the story is character driven. It's not as much plot driven as it is character driven. William Dafoe makes an appearance in this movie, and he is hilarious as this actor turned cop. And some of the lines and some of the things that he does are just absolutely hilarious. He's a lot of fun to deal with. There are a couple cameos from a couple of other people that are a lot of funny. I'm not going to spoil those for you. But there, you have different forms of conflict in this, and actually different types of villains, depending upon which sub-story that you're dealing with. So that makes it even more interesting. I would say the other thing about this movie is that there are not as many haha gotcha moments in this. Like, the first one, you have the whole Deo thing, and then you have the gruesome stuff that the Maitlands try to do to scare everybody, and then you have Beetlejuice attacking and almost killing somebody. You don't really have as much of that in this movie, but there's still a couple of things. It's more of a comedy than a horror in a way, and it's actually fairly clean. There's very few cuss words. There are a couple of cuss words when Beetlejuice is speaking another language, and you'll see that in the translation. However, there's it's not that bad, and there's a little bit of innuendo, but not as much as was in the first one, really. I thought this movie was funny. My eyes were glued to the screen. I would go see this again. I'll buy it on Blu-ray as part of my collection. Actually, 4K as part of my collection because I thought it was funny. It's a worthy sequel. It's not really a direct sequel. It's another story involving some of the same characters in the same world, if that makes sense to you, because you're not really continuing Barbara and Adam's storyline, which they were the focus of the first one. It's more about the Dietzes and their family line and where they go. I will say that when you see it, just have fun with it. I think this comes back to the main point of movies and why we go to see them is we're there to be entertained. We're there to have a good time, have a good character-driven story, and this movie does that. So that's my review for Beetlejuice. I would say go see it. I would rate it probably about a 7.5, 7.5, almost an 8. Check it out for yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's have a good discussion, and we'll see you on the next one.